Victory for Shadow Cartel in our first match post a break. Do you know what happens if you don't ban dummies? 7 of them.
Everyone breaks out.
Yes, basically. So that was an interesting fight. What was kind of those two setups that look kind of similar? What were kind of the differences in here? What was the match?
So Shadow Cartel not bringing the Logi was the really big difference. The Urine team was actually a Tinker team. They were cap feeding their Neros and giving him local reps so that he could survive under fire, but it just wasn't enough against all that damage. And the lack of a logistics ship for Shadow Cartel meant they got to take better advantage of micro jump drives. You saw right off the beginning of the match, drop their sentries, MJD'd out in all directions, which made catching them really, really hard.
Why would they have to catch them though, since they're dummies too?
If you wanted to apply damage with any of the smaller ships.
Well, another great thing about the Dami setup, like what they're trying to accomplish here with the Tinker Tanko Nero setup, which we talked about earlier, it doesn't tank nearly as well as a shield logistics would. The Damis are able to erase that, the logistics at will. So they were trying to remove that from the situation and hope that it worked. My guess is they didn't test it, or at least didn't test it against anything competent. So they made the Logi, the fact that they were Logi-less, null and void, then come mid-game, late game, they've got all the Moluses to just damp out all the enemy Dominixes, so they're effectively taking 0 damage, so they didn't need a Logi in the first place.
They had the damp superiority for that whole fight, which really helped, especially once they dropped all of the support frigs off the field. It meant that they could just damp down the Dommies, and you saw that the Curators were shooting at a Molus and just failing to hit the whole time. So at the end of the fight there, the fact that they had those Moluses on the field while their opponent had no frigs was the huge deciding factor. That's what actually meant that those remaining Dommies just were taking no damage.
Right, and they could have done something to the Moluses, provided the range was a little better, if they would have still had target painters on the field. But since they didn't, they're just, they're not going to track them.
So there we've got the teams up on the field, or up on listed, and I guess a complete wipe. The Shadow Cartel team able to clear them off pretty effectively.
And of course, we're not listing the value of the ships that survived, just to not really give away anything about how they're fitted, all that stuff. So we saw a single Navy issue Dommy. What does that bring to the table over the regular ones?
In this situation, I think they probably brought that in case there was some sort of a scenario where they needed to brawl in and do a lot of DPS really quick. Because I believe a Navy Dommy can pretty easily reach 1500 DPS in a brawl. Other than that, I'm not exactly sure. I think that there were probably some better options. Like you could have gotten an Armageddon in there and then spread some points out among your secondary ships.
It's very possible that they just really wanted to bring 4 Dommies and couldn't because of our rules. And so decided to bring another one, which doesn't have all the same bonuses, but at least it can drop 4 sentry or 5 sentry drones. But it was able to apply that extra DPS, which really helped.
I mean, if their point is to spread out, field as much EHP and sentry drone damage as possible, a Geddon doesn't, they don't really need the Geddon utility because they're not trying to be close to anybody. They're just trying to have tons of HP to soak everything up while they shoot sentries all over the place. And for that, it's fine. Like, you could do like Ishtars or something, but probably you're fine with this. So.
And the MJD seemed to be kind of a part of what they're planning for, so you can't do that on Ishtar. So yeah, I think the Navy Dommy was a fine choice. I think they would have taken a normal Dommy if they could. One thing that a lot of people might not know, according to the official rules of low-sec secession, this match does mean Shadow Cartel is now the Kings of Low-Sec. If you kill the Kings of Low-Sec in either a tournament match or destroy a Revenant belonging to them, you gain the full title Kings of Low-Sec. So
That's wonderful.
Now if anyone can beat Shadow Cartel, they'll become Kings of Low-Sec, even if they're high-sec or 0-0 players.
So Shadow Cartel drop their drones, MJT out of range. How do you counter that? What do you do when they just split off in all kinds of different directions?
You have to be able to tank them without losing anything. I think that there are Dommy counters that I don't really want to go into just yet because there's teams that I have interest in winning, and you have to be able to survive. You have to be able to not lose any of your support frigates, and you have to also be able to apply damage to them. So you kind of have to counter it with something that can do the same exact thing that they're doing.
Yeah, and in this case, because the Dommies for Shadow Cartel had dropped guards, high damage drones, and close and then move far away, they could only get hit with really Curators at that range.
So that's a great way to do that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next match is ready. It is Solar Fleet versus MIF. Who do we think is going to win that one?
Tough. I'm going to go with MIF, though.
I'm going to go with Solar Fleet.
I'm going to go with MIF because of them being in a really cool match earlier in the tournament.
I agree. That was quite entertaining. So let's see who wins, MIF or Solar Fleet.